Commander Elena Vasquez walked through the metal corridors of the Terran Naval Academy. Her boots made sharp sounds on the floor. Today was the most important day of the year. The final test was about to begin. She stopped in front of a massive door. Behind it was the Nexus simulator. This machine could create any battle scene. It felt completely real to anyone inside. The Academy had spent 20 years building it. Now it was ready for the hardest test ever created. Elena looked at her watch. In 10 minutes, the best students would enter the simulator. One of them was her daughter, Sarah. Lieutenant Sarah Vasquez had trained for this moment her whole life. The test scenario was huge. 12 different alien races at war with each other. Each race had different weapons and fighting styles. Some used energy beams. Others preferred missile attacks. A few relied on boarding parties and close combat. Elena had helped design this test. She wanted it to be the hardest thing any human had ever faced. The students would need to think fast, work together, and make difficult choices. Many would fail. She pressed her hand against a scanner. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the simulator room was dark except for a few blue lights. Rows of chairs surrounded a central platform. Each chair could connect a person's mind directly to the simulation. "Commander Vasquez?" A technician approached her. "The quantum processors are running at full power. We've never used this much computing strength before." Elena nodded. "Good. This test requires everything we have." She walked to the control booth above the simulator floor. Through the glass, she could see the students gathering below, 25 of the Academy's best. They wore black uniforms with silver badges. Each one had spent 4 years preparing for this moment. Sarah stood with her team near the center chairs. She looked calm, but Elena knew her daughter well. Sarah always touched her left wrist when she was nervous. She was doing it now. The other students talked quietly among themselves. Some looked excited. Others seemed worried. All of them understood what this test meant. Pass, and they would become real officers in the Terran fleet. Fail, and they would spend years in lesser positions. Elena's communication device buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. A message from Admiral Chen. 3 words. "They are coming." Her hands started to shake. 3 days ago, long-range sensors had detected something impossible. Ships, hundreds of them, moving toward Earth at incredible speed. The designs were unlike anything humans had ever built. Elena had attended the emergency meetings. The admirals argued about what to do. Some wanted to send messages trying to communicate. Others demanded they prepare for war immediately. In the end, they chose a middle path. They would ready the fleet, but try to keep the discovery secret. The alien ships would reach Earth's outer defenses in 6 hours. Elena stared at the students below. They thought they were about to take a test. They had no idea they might be humanity's last hope. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Chen. "Sir, request permission to abort the exercise." "Denied," came the quick reply. "This may be our only chance to study them before they arrive." Elena closed her eyes. The aliens had been sending signals to each other. The Academy's computers had been trying to decode those signals for days. The patterns were starting to make sense. The aliens talked about humans like they were children. They called Earth the practice planet, because humans only seemed to fight pretend wars. The aliens had been watching human military exercises for months. They saw the war games, the simulations, the training battles. To them, it looked like humans never fought real wars, just endless practice sessions. They thought humans would be easy to defeat. Elena made a decision that would change everything. She opened another secure channel, this one to the simulation technicians. Patch the real-time sensor data into the scenario. Make the alien ships match exactly what we're seeing from the approaching fleet. "Ma'am?" The technician sounded confused. "That would mean—" "Do it," Elena ordered. and connect the simulation controls to our actual fleet positions. Use the quantum links." The technician's voice was worried. "Commander, that would make this a real battle. The students would be controlling actual ships." "I know," Elena said quietly. She watched Sarah check her equipment one more time. "But they don't need to know that yet." Down on the simulator floor, an instructor called for attention. "Students, take your positions. Today you face the Galactic War scenario. 12 hostile alien races have formed an alliance against humanity. Your job is to defend Earth and its colonies." The students moved to their chairs. Neural connection cables lowered from the ceiling. Elena watched as each student placed the silver devices against their temples. Sarah was the last to connect. She looked up at the control booth. Elena knew her daughter couldn't see her through the one-way glass, but she waved anyway. "Beginning neural interface connection," the instructor announced. "Remember, this simulation will feel completely real. Pain suppressors are active, but you will experience stress and fatigue. Work as a team. Think before you act. The fate of humanity rests in your hands." Elena almost laughed at that last part. The instructor had no idea how true those words were. The lights dimmed. On screens around the control booth, Elena watched as the students' consciousness entered the simulation. To them, they were now standing on the bridge of the flagship Olympus, surrounded by the most advanced fleet humanity had ever built. They had no idea that every ship they could see was real. Every weapon they controlled actually existed. Every order they gave would be followed by actual crews floating in space near Earth. Elena opened a channel to the fleet commanders. "This is Academy Control. You are now under the command of Academy students participating in Exercise Final Storm. Follow their orders exactly." "Understood, Academy Control," came the replies from dozens of ship captains. Elena looked at her daughter's peaceful face in the chair below. Sarah thought she was about to fight the hardest simulation ever created. She was actually about to save the human race. Sarah opened her eyes and found herself standing on a starship bridge. The simulation felt incredibly real. She could smell the recycled air and hear the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Her team stood around her, all looking amazed by how detailed everything seemed. "Wow," said Marcus, her second in command. "This feels more real than any simulation we've done before." Sarah nodded, but something felt different. She had run hundreds of simulations during her training. This one seemed too perfect. Every surface had tiny scratches and wear marks. The chairs showed signs of actual use. Even the coffee stains on the captain's chair looked real. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. It was Jenny Liu, one of the smartest students in their class. "Multiple alien fleets detected at the edge of the system." Sarah moved to the central command chair. Through the main screen, she could see space filled with ships. They came in 12 different designs, just as the briefing had promised. Some looked like silver arrows. Others resembled giant metal spiders. A few appeared to be made of pure crystal. "Analysis report," Sarah ordered. Tommy Rodriguez, their tactical expert, worked quickly at his station. "The formations match historical patterns from the Vega conflicts. But there's something strange. The energy signatures are incredibly detailed, more complex than any simulation database we've studied." Sarah felt a small chill. Tommy was right. The alien ships showed power readings that seemed too complicated for a computer program to generate. Each ship had hundreds of different energy sources. The simulation computers would need enormous processing power to create such detail. "Fleet status?" she asked. 47 ships under our command," reported Katie Zhang from the operations station. "All systems show green, but Sarah, look at these crew manifests." Katie transferred data to Sarah's personal screen. The crew lists showed thousands of names. Each person had a complete service record, family information, and personal details. Sarah recognized many of the names. They were real officers she had met during her academy years. "That's impossible," Sarah whispered. "The simulation database doesn't include personal information about real fleet personnel." She tried to push the strange feelings away. This was just the final test. The academy professors wanted it to feel as real as possible. They had obviously spent years gathering detailed information to make everything seem authentic. "Alien fleet is moving to attack formation," Jenny reported. "They're using the Cygnus pincer formation." Sarah studied the tactical display. The alien ships were arranging themselves in a pattern she had never seen before. It wasn't in any of their training materials. Real military commanders would need to develop new strategies to counter it. "All ships, defensive formation 7, Sarah ordered. "Keep our destroyers between the cruisers and the enemy." The human fleet moved smoothly into position. On her screen, Sarah watched 47 ships follow her commands perfectly. It should have been exciting. Instead, she felt more confused. In every simulation she had ever run, there were small delays when ships changed position. The computers needed time to calculate new flight paths. But these ships moved instantly, as if real pilots were controlling them. "Enemy is opening fire," Tommy announced. Space filled with energy beams and missile trails. The alien attack was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Sarah had never seen weapons effects this detailed in a simulation. "Return fire," she ordered. "Focus on their command ships." The human weapons responded immediately. Sarah watched as their energy beams struck alien vessels. Some ships took damage, others exploded completely. But something was wrong with the explosions. In simulations, destroyed ships disappeared cleanly. These explosions left debris clouds that drifted through space, following real physics laws. Pieces of destroyed ships bumped into other objects. Some debris even hit nearby vessels and caused additional damage. "Sarah," Marcus said quietly, "I've been monitoring communication channels. I'm picking up chatter from other academy classes. They're talking about ships being deployed to defensive positions." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "Listen." Marcus activated the communication system. Voices filled the bridge, but they weren't coming from their simulation. "Academy Squadron 7, move to grid position 42, said one voice. "Roger, control. Squadron 7 moving to position," came the reply. "Cadet Williams, your navigation is off by 3 degrees. Correct immediately." Sarah felt her heart start beating faster. Those were real radio transmissions from actual fleet exercises. But why would they be hearing them during their simulation? "Jenny, try to contact Academy Control," Sarah ordered. Jenny worked at her station for several minutes. "I can reach them. But there's something strange. The communication delay is wrong." "What do you mean wrong?" "If we're in the simulation chamber, talking to Control should be instant, but I'm getting a quarter-second delay. That's what you'd expect if we were actually communicating through space." Sarah's hands started to shake. She looked around the bridge at her team. They were all staring at her with worried expressions. "Tommy, run a system diagnostic. Check everything." Tommy's fingers flew over his controls. After several minutes, he looked up with a pale face. "Sarah, according to these readings, we're actually in space. The ship's location shows we're 15,000 kilometers from Earth." "That's impossible," Sarah said, but her voice wasn't confident anymore. She activated a private communication channel to Academy Control. After a moment, her mother's voice came through clearly. "Sarah, how is the exercise going?" "Mom, something's wrong with this simulation. Everything feels too real." There was a long pause. Sarah could hear her mother breathing. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "The details are too complex. The physics are too accurate. The communication delays are wrong." Sarah took a deep breath. "Mom, are we actually in space right now?" Another pause. Even longer this time. "Sarah, focus on the mission. Your team is doing excellent work." "That's not an answer." Sarah's voice was louder now. Her team turned to look at her. "Mom, I need you to tell me the truth. Is this a simulation or not?" The pause stretched on forever. Sarah could feel her heart pounding. Outside the main screen, the battle continued. Ships exploded. People died. But were they real people? Finally, her mother's voice came back, quiet and sad. "Sarah, what do you think it is?" Sarah stared at the screen showing the space battle. Real explosions, real debris, real physics, real communication delays. "Mom," she whispered into the communication device, "live fire or drill?" The silence that followed told her everything she needed to know. Elena's voice came through the communication system after what felt like forever. "It's live fire, Sarah. I'm sorry." Sarah felt the bridge spinning around her. She gripped the command chair to keep from falling. The words hit her like physical blows. Live fire. Real weapons, real ships, real people dying because of her orders. "How long?" Sarah whispered. 3 days. "The alien fleet will reach Earth's outer defenses in 5 hours." Sarah looked at her team. They had all heard the conversation. Marcus looked sick. Jenny was staring at her station with wide eyes. Tommy had gone completely pale. Katie was shaking her head slowly. "You mean," Marcus said in a broken voice, "when that destroyer exploded 10 minutes ago?" 43 crew members, Elena answered gently. "I have their names if you want them." Sarah closed her eyes. 43 people. Dead. Because she had ordered them into a dangerous position. She had treated them like pieces in a game. "Why didn't you tell us?" Tommy demanded. Elena's sigh came through clearly. "Because we needed you to fight naturally. If you knew it was real, you might have been too careful, too afraid to make hard choices, too afraid to get people killed." "You mean," Jenny said bitterly. "Yes," Elena admitted. "War requires terrible decisions, Jenny. We needed commanders who could make them." Sarah forced herself to look at the tactical display. The battle was still going on. Ships were still fighting and dying while she struggled with the truth. "How many people are under my command?" she asked. 46 ships remaining. Approximately 12,000 crew members. 12,000 people. Sarah had been responsible for 12,000 lives and didn't even know it. The weight of that knowledge felt like it might crush her. "Sarah," her mother's voice was gentle but firm. "I know this is hard. But right now, those 12,000 people need you to focus. The alien fleet is still coming." Sarah took several deep breaths. She looked around at her team. They were all looking at her, waiting for her to tell them what to do. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay, we can deal with the emotional stuff later. Right now, we have a job to do." She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All vessels, this is Admiral Vasquez." Admiral. The word felt strange. She had been promoted during a battle without knowing it. "I know many of you are confused about the situation. The truth is, this is not an exercise. We are facing a real alien invasion. I understand that you signed up to follow the orders of Academy students. You have every right to refuse those orders now." Sarah paused, waiting. No ship requested permission to withdraw. "Thank you," she continued. "Now let's show these aliens what humans can do when we're really fighting for our home." The next few hours taught Sarah things about war that no simulation could have prepared her for. Real battles were messier than training exercises. Equipment broke at critical moments. Communication systems failed. Ships ran out of ammunition. But she also learned something else. Her team was incredibly good at adapting to problems. When their main communication array was damaged, Tommy rigged a backup system using mining equipment. When they needed to coordinate with ships that spoke different languages, Jenny created a simple symbol code that everyone could understand. Most importantly, Sarah discovered that all their training had actually prepared them for this. Every simulation they had run, every tactical problem they had solved, Every late-night study session had built skills they were now using to save human lives. "Admiral," Katie called out, "I'm intercepting alien communications. They sound confused." "Put it on speakers," Sarah ordered. Strange sounds filled the bridge. The alien language was unlike anything Sarah had ever heard, but the tone was clear. They sounded frustrated and surprised. "Can you translate any of it?" Sarah asked. Jenny worked at her station. "The computer is finding some patterns. Here's what I can understand." Text appeared on the main screen. "How do the practice fighters fight so well? They should know nothing of real war." Sarah felt a cold smile cross her face. "They've been watching our training exercises." "That's what it sounds like," Jenny agreed. Another message. "The play warriors use tactics not in their games. This is not possible." Tommy laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "They think we only know how to fight pretend wars." "More messages coming in," Jenny reported. "They're talking about simulation beings and practice species. Admiral, I think they've been monitoring our military exercises for months. They thought we were a species that only pretended to fight." Sarah understood immediately. The aliens had been watching human war games and training exercises. To them, it looked like humans never fought real wars. They expected to find weak opponents who only knew how to play at warfare. They were learning how wrong they had been. "Admiral," Marcus said excitedly, "look at this tactical analysis. The alien formations are designed to fight enemies who use simple, direct strategies. But we've been training against complex scenarios for years." He was right. The alien battle plans assumed their enemies would attack in straight lines and follow predictable patterns. Human military doctrine was based on deception, surprise, and creative thinking. They prepared to fight an enemy that doesn't exist, Sarah realized. They expected us to be simple and direct because that's what they saw in our training exercises. But our exercises were designed to be challenging, Tommy added. We trained against enemies that were smarter and more creative than we expected real aliens to be. Sarah felt something like hope for the first time since learning the truth. The aliens had made a huge mistake. They had studied human military exercises, but completely misunderstood what they were seeing. "New alien transmission," Jenny announced. More text appeared. "Request immediate tactical analysis. The practice species fights like they have experience with real war. This was not predicted." Another message. "Human simulation training may not be simulation. Investigating possibility of deception." "Too late," Sarah said with satisfaction. "They're just figuring out that we've been preparing for real war all along." She opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels, this is Admiral Vasquez. I want you to understand something. The aliens have been watching our training exercises for months. They think they know how we fight because they've seen our war games." Sarah paused to let that sink in. They're about to learn the difference between watching someone practice and fighting someone who has been practicing their whole life. Show them what human warriors really look like. The alien fleet commanders gathered for an emergency meeting aboard their massive command ship. The holographic displays around the war room showed the battle in detail. What they saw made no sense. Commander Vex 9 studied the tactical readouts with growing frustration. "The humans are using strategies not found in any of their recorded exercises." "Impossible," replied Admiral Thorin Prime. "We have monitored their military activities for 18 standard cycles. They practice the same basic maneuvers repeatedly. Attack formations, defensive positions, simple flanking movements. Then explain this." Vex 9 highlighted a section of the battle. The human fleet divided into 7 groups. Each group attacked from a different angle while transmitting false sensor readings. When we moved to counter one group, 3 others appeared behind us. Sub-Commander Keth 7 added, "Their communication patterns change every few minutes. We cannot predict their coordination methods." Admiral Thorin Prime slammed a appendage against the command table. "They are supposed to be a practice species. Their whole military is based on simulation games." On the human side of the battle, Sarah was learning why her species excelled at warfare. It wasn't because humans were stronger or had better technology. It was because humans treated every fight like their lives depended on it. "Tommy, status report," Sarah called out. "We've destroyed 16 alien ships with minimal losses. But Admiral, look at this analysis. The alien weapons are actually more advanced than ours." Sarah studied the data. Tommy was right. The alien energy beams were more powerful. Their shields were stronger. Their ships were faster. "Then how are we winning?" Marcus asked. "Because they fight like they've never been in a real war before," Sarah realized. "Watch their patterns." She brought up a tactical display showing the alien movements. "Look, when we attack one of their ships, the others nearby always move to help it. They don't consider that we might be using that ship as bait." Jenny nodded excitedly. "And when they attack us, they commit all their forces to each attack. They don't hold any ships in reserve." "It's like they learned warfare from a textbook," Katie added. "They know all the right formations and strategies, but they don't understand how to adapt when things go wrong." Sarah understood now. The aliens had superior technology, but they had never developed the kind of strategic thinking that came from endless practice and simulation. "Open a channel to all human ships," Sarah ordered. "I want to try something." She waited until all 46 ships were listening. "All vessels, we're going to run the Kobayashi Maru scenario." There was silence on the communication channels. Every human officer knew that scenario. It was a famous training exercise where there was no way to win. Students were supposed to learn how to handle impossible situations. "Admiral," came a voice from one of the cruisers, "the Kobayashi Maru is a no-win scenario. It's designed to be impossible." "Exactly," Sarah replied. "The aliens have never faced anything like it. They don't know how to fight when victory is impossible." Sarah quickly explained her plan. The human fleet would split into 3 groups. Each group would attack the alien fleet from a different direction. But here was the twist. Each group would deliberately put themselves in positions where they could be easily destroyed. "You want us to make ourselves vulnerable on purpose?" asked a destroyer captain. "Yes. The aliens will see an opportunity to win quickly. They'll commit everything to destroying each group. But while they're focused on our weak positions, they'll expose their own flanks." It was exactly the kind of paradoxical thinking that the Kobayashi Maru scenario was designed to teach. Sometimes the only way to win was to accept that you were going to lose. The human fleet moved into position. Sarah watched as her ships deliberately exposed themselves to alien attack. It felt wrong to order good people into danger, but she forced herself to trust the strategy. The aliens reacted exactly as predicted. They saw the vulnerable human positions and immediately moved to exploit them. Their entire fleet rushed forward to destroy the exposed ships. "Now," Sarah whispered. The human ships that had seemed weak suddenly revealed hidden weapons. Ships that appeared damaged launched surprise attacks. Vessels that looked like they were retreating turned around and struck at undefended alien flanks. The alien fleet found themselves caught in 3 separate crossfires with nowhere to run. "Admiral," Jenny reported with amazement, "we've destroyed over half their fleet. They're requesting permission to withdraw." Sarah felt a moment of triumph, but it was mixed with sadness. How many people did we lose? Surprisingly few. The aliens were so focused on what they thought were easy targets that they ignored our actual vulnerable spots. On the alien command ship, panic filled the war room. Admiral Thorin Prime stared at the battle displays in disbelief. "How did they turn a losing position into a victory?" he demanded. "Unknown," replied Vex 9. "Their tactics make no logical sense. They deliberately weakened their own positions." "Are they insane?" "Possibly. Or perhaps their simulation training included scenarios we cannot understand." Commander Keth 7 looked up from her analysis station. Admiral, I have studied their training records more carefully. I believe I understand the problem. Explain. Their simulations were not designed to teach them how to win. They were designed to teach them how to think when winning is impossible. Admiral Thorin Prime felt a chill of understanding. You mean, yes. We prepared to fight an enemy that practices winning, but humans practice losing. They train for impossible situations. They learn to find victory where none should exist. Back on the human flagship, Sarah received a transmission from the alien fleet. "Human Commander," came a translated voice. "We request permission to discuss terms." Sarah looked around at her team. They had done it. Somehow, a group of Academy students had defeated a superior alien force. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender," Sarah replied. "But I want to understand something first." She opened a direct channel to the alien commander. "Why did you attack us?" There was a pause before the answer came. "We observed your species for many cycles. You appeared to be a race that only practiced warfare but never engaged in actual conflict. We believed you would be easily conquered." Sarah almost laughed. "You thought we only knew how to fight pretend wars." "Yes, this assumption has proven incorrect." "You made one mistake," Sarah told the alien commander. "For humans, there's no difference between a drill and live fire. We always fight like our lives depend on it. Because they always do." 6 months after the battle, Sarah stood in the same simulation chamber where everything had started. But now it looked completely different. The walls were covered with displays showing star charts, alien ship designs, and tactical analyses from a dozen different species. The room buzzed with activity. Human officers worked alongside aliens from the former invasion fleet. Together, they were designing new training scenarios based on what they had learned from the war. "Admiral Vasquez," called out Vex 9, the former alien commander who was now serving as a tactical advisor. "The Centaurian delegation has arrived for the strategy conference." Sarah smiled. The title still felt strange, but she was getting used to it. After the battle, the human government had decided that the Academy students who had saved Earth should keep their wartime ranks. Sarah was now the youngest admiral in human history. "Thank you, Vex 9. How are the new simulation protocols coming along?" The alien's translator device made soft clicking sounds as it processed his response. "Your human concept of no-win scenarios is proving very popular. 17 species have requested copies of the Kobayashi Maru exercise." Sarah walked over to where her old team was working on a new project. Marcus was explaining human strategic doctrine to a group of crystal-based aliens. Jenny was teaching communication protocols to spider-like beings from the Rigel system. Tommy was showing energy-based life forms how to analyze complex battle patterns. "How's it going, everyone?" Sarah asked. "These guys are incredible learners," Marcus replied, gesturing to the crystal aliens. Once they understood the concept of fighting dirty, they developed 17 new tactics in 2 hours. "The Rigel spiders are naturally good at multidimensional thinking," Jenny added. "They can coordinate complex fleet movements better than any species I've seen." Katie looked up from her workstation. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the battle records from our fight. I found something interesting." Sarah moved closer to look at Katie's display. It showed communication intercepts from the alien fleet during the battle. "What am I looking at?" Sarah asked. "These are messages between alien ship commanders during the fight. Look at this one." Katie highlighted a specific transmission. It says, "The practice beings fight like they have done this before. How is this possible?" Sarah read more of the messages. The alien commanders had been genuinely confused during the battle. They kept referring to humans as a simulation species and expressing amazement that humans could fight effectively in real combat. "Here's the really interesting part," Katie continued. After the battle, they analyzed our training records going back 50 years. They found something they had missed before. What? Our exercises weren't just practice. They were actually preparation for specific scenarios. Every war game we ran was designed to teach us something about fighting unknown enemies with unknown capabilities. Sarah thought about that. It was true. Every simulation she had ever run at the academy had been different. The enemies always had new weapons, new tactics, new ways of thinking. The professors had never let students get comfortable with familiar opponents. The aliens, on the other hand, Katie continued, had been fighting the same way for thousands of years. They were experts at defeating enemies they understood, but they had never learned how to fight opponents who thought differently than they did. Elena Vasquez entered the chamber and walked over to her daughter. "Sarah, the council meeting is about to start. Are you ready?" Sarah nodded. Today, representatives from 43 different alien species would gather to discuss the formation of the Galactic Strategic Training Alliance. The organization would share military knowledge and training techniques among all member species. The idea had come from the aliens themselves. After studying human training methods, they realized that most galactic civilizations had the same weakness they had suffered from. They were too specialized. Each species had developed military tactics based on fighting enemies similar to themselves. Humans were different. Human military training was based on the assumption that future enemies would be completely unlike anything they had faced before. This made human tactical thinking uniquely flexible. "Admiral," Vex 9 approached again, "the Centaurian delegation is concerned about one aspect of the training alliance." "What's the problem?" "They worry that sharing strategic knowledge will eliminate their military advantages. They want assurance that humans will not use the alliance to gain power over other species." Sarah had heard this concern before from several alien delegations. They were afraid that by teaching humans their military secrets, they would be giving humans the tools to conquer them. "Tell them what I told the others," Sarah replied. "Humans don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to make sure that when the next threat appears, everyone is ready for it." She gestured toward the simulation chamber. This room used to be designed to test individual human students. Now it's being used to train mixed-species crews from across the galaxy. That's what we want. Cooperation, not conquest. Vex 9 translated the message to the Centaurians. After a brief discussion in their musical language, they indicated acceptance. Sarah walked to the center of the chamber where a large holographic display showed the current state of galactic civilization. 43 species were now part of the alliance. They shared technological resources, strategic intelligence, and training facilities. But the most important thing they shared was a new way of thinking about warfare. Instead of preparing to fight familiar enemies, they were learning to prepare for unknown threats. "Admiral," Tommy called out from his workstation, "the new simulation is ready for testing." Sarah walked over to see what her old tactical expert had created. The display showed a scenario unlike anything they had ever faced. The enemy ships moved in patterns that defied physics. Their weapons seemed to bend the laws of space and time. "What kind of opponents are these supposed to be?" Sarah asked. Tommy grinned. "No idea. That's the point. I designed an enemy that uses completely unknown principles. Any species that trains against this opponent will learn to adapt to anything." Sarah studied the scenario more carefully. It was brilliant. The enemy forces would require defenders to abandon everything they thought they knew about space combat. Only by developing entirely new strategies could anyone hope to win. "Perfect," Sarah said. "This is exactly what we need." She activated the chamber's communication system to address everyone in the room. "Attention, all personnel. In 10 minutes, we'll begin testing the new adaptive response protocol. This will be the most challenging scenario any of us has ever faced." As beings from across the galaxy prepared for the test, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, she had been a student taking what she thought was a final exam. Now she was helping to prepare an entire galaxy for threats that didn't yet exist. The best part was that nobody asked anymore whether the scenarios were real or simulated. Everyone understood that for human military doctrine, there had never been a difference. Elena joined her daughter at the central command position. "Proud of you, Sarah." "Thanks, Mom. But I keep thinking about that question I asked you during the battle. Live fire or drill?" "Yeah, I finally understand the answer." Elena smiled. "What's that?" Sarah looked around the chamber filled with humans and aliens working together to prepare for an uncertain future. For humans, it's always both. We drill like it's live fire, and we fight like it's a drill. That's why we're good at this. The simulation began, and once again, Sarah found herself commanding a fleet against impossible odds, but this time she knew exactly what she was doing. She was preparing for the next war that nobody could imagine yet.